Hi there, my name is Ben Keat, and I'm just making a short video as entitled, as you'll see in the title of this video, SAFCOM's Limited Healing Capabilities. Now, I've had some success with healing people through decluttered, debugged computers. However, I don't expect everyone to be able to operate in the same way. The process is going to be transferable to creating apps for Android phones and technologies that can be purveyors of the light web, provided the system itself is already debugged or decluttered. In other words, had the consumer restraints removed from it. This process is possible, and the creation of apps in order to do this is a great idea and also a profitable idea. It's a way of ensuring that I can employ people to make apps that encapsulate the program script that heals certain problems. I think it's limited in capability. That's the only issue. I have more preference towards a more organic nature of healing people using maybe the universal plants that Ina will provide, or the technologies that other realities can involve, that I'm currently under discussion with a friend of mine that I won't talk about here. So the healing process of using command line script in the word of origin, in the existing word of origin, is absolutely the primary issue involved in setting up the healing plants of paradise. And although the whole thing goes out into the ether and eventually comes back as a universal commodity in one of the spheres of reality that Ina should propose to be, the actual amalgamation of all these plant realities into one healing cure for all ails is technically difficult, and there are many different scripts needed to be written in order to solve the problems. Now, cancer has been adjustable to many different variants, but ultimately, as you got the scale of healing cancer through command line programming, what you find is there's the higher you go up, the more diverse the healing qualities of that command line are in the spheres of healing cancer. So this is nothing. This is nothing new. It's in operation. It's not messiahed out, but it's in operation to the result that it actually becomes a free interface for healing certain genres of illness. However, the next level is to get into the real body of the thing and heal physical ails such as you know, multiple sclerosis, or issues to do with physical disability that people may have actually been born with, and reversing that. Doing things such as taking out scars that have been left on the body for a long period, which are permanent scars that can't be removed. These things need to be looked at as, it's all very well healing things within inside the body of people, but actually healing something that is a physical defect or a physical reality that's manifesting itself as a physical reality takes the next leap of faith, if you know what I mean. It takes the next level. So to do that, what we're actually going to have to do is believe in the nature of what I propose to be able to do on UMOSRAS, which is actually the physical cyber-dimensional escalated creation, which is the bringing about of conjuring up a physical bunch of flowers, or conjuring up something physical in front of people before their very eyes. And once a few of these phenomena have taken place, then it's no leap of faith to actually move towards the whole reality of the platform of first heaven. So, ultimately, the bridge between that is, how do we manifest the reality of the CDEC in the reality of creating healing in someone who has a physical disability? And that is essentially the crux of the whole matter. If I can physically heal someone with multiple sclerosis, and the reality of it manifests itself as a physical change in that person instantly, then the success is there. And to create an app that you can then maybe telemetrically attach yourself, press a button, and hey presto, you're healed. Would be fantastic for that. Irrespective of the fact that we're going to enhance the existing pharmaceutical industries by putting in plants that have been created through the mantras, through the the program scripts that have enabled healing of various ailments in the past, be it diabetes or be it cholesterol, things like that, which are quite easily healable through the script of the Vabbat. But it's possible to actually lead to the level where it manifests itself as something physical, and this is something I'm having problem breaking through with. Technically, it's not so much having an intrinsic knowledge of what the problem is, or it's having a solution to the problem. It's having an alternative. If someone's an alcoholic, you have to. If someone's on heroin, you have to give them methadone to take them off it. You have to give them a supplement to take them off it. And if someone has something that physically manifests itself as a problem, such as I don't know, a scar on the face, for example, like that. They may have a scar on the face, and the reality of change to get that scar off the face is to supplement it with, the need for surgery, or the need for something a little bit more, technically less divisive than surgery. Perhaps something where you would feel overly normal in that area. You'd feel overly comfortable, perhaps build up a pleroma around that person. To manifest a physical change is not difficult. Is difficult, but it's technically quite practical. It's just substituting what is already there with something else. So to conjure something out of thin air, to give someone a new leg, when they've had their leg cut off, to conjure up a leg is, off-world in space where someone doesn't know me. I could probably do that, where I haven't seen the reality of someone growing back a new leg. But in reality, in the physical reality of the here and now, it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do, So, the technological reality of how change can manifest itself, how one thing can become something else, how thin air can become a glass of water, how a broken glass can become rebuilt, how a dead plant can become a living plant. Whatever the issue, it's all possible with the knowledge of what goes underneath. And the fact is, the very building blocks, life itself, the light that is quantum physics, the gold dust, the reality, the fact that life, the bare essentials of life in everything, carbon life forms, everything is made up of gold, is made up of this gold strain, this pure light, which is, you convert a block of gold to this light substance, and a feather outweighs it, a whole block of gold. So this reality is nothing new. It's just understanding that fundamentally, as you get to the issues of carbon and fossil fuels, what we have is a commodity. This is why I'm anti-fossil fuel burning. I'm not anti it, particularly because of the pollution. I don't believe that's a long-term problem for the planet. I believe the planet will heal itself. But I believe ultimately, we've got fossil fuels living under the earth there for a reason. They're there to be converted to the source of life and to make this transition into gold. Now, using the philosopher's stone, reality is a great way to start in the way of changing something from its existing reality into its supersubstantial reality. And what we must understand is that, if you're going to convert coal into light, into gold, you have to go through a two-phase reality. And in order to convert coal into light, you have to break it down, right? We have to break it down to what it was, which was originally life, which became plant. Now, you're going to release a small amount of light from a plant. It's not going to hold as much gold as a human body, but the reality of reverse constructing a dead being, a dead matter, a dead plant, into gold it's going to release a certain amount of gold, which will be sufficient enough to make a considerable, quantity. Life is precious. It's enough to make a considerable amount of gold. I mean, maybe like a gold nugget from a dead geranium. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows what the reality would be? But if you break that down into the more condensed form of what carbon is, what fossil fuels are, what the reality of what coal and oil and everything else in the fossil fuel genre, natural gas, all that sort of thing. The reality of deconstructing that, the whole process is about deconstructing it back to the living reality, so a synthesized reality of what that living product would be. So you'd map out what the carbon was telling you. The carbon would tell you the story, and the reality of what was underneath the story of that carbon would then map out the life forms, and then you'd be able to extract into the reality that you'd be able to physically turn that coal or that oil or that natural gas into light, the source of life. And when you then go through the next process, that's the first process. So you deconstruct through its life story into its source of life, which is light. Then you get to the level where you go for the next agenda. So that thing is no longer dead. You deconstruct it, but we're then taking it off into a different avenue. We're not rebuilding plants unless we need to. Unless we have a fossil record of certain plants we need to regenerate. That's an option, but we're not dealing with that here, because to simplify the process, to make it back into those plants is much more complicated. Perhaps it isn't. Perhaps it's natural that it goes up the same path. But what we're going to do in this process, the whole process, was to show how we can make something precious. Ultimately, the whole process is about healing, but ultimately, we need something to change from the existing reality it was into something super reality. So the next process then is to move up the scale and to learn a way of turning philosopher's stone back into gold. Now, this process is about amplifying. It's about amplification. So if we're dealing with resonance and the sound that words make, if each letter has a sound that is written into the alphabet of the runic script that creates healing in the first place, then the resonance of the sound needs to be amplified as it goes up the scale. So the process of creating gold from light is about giving it magnetism, giving it resonance, giving it something that can make an impact, make a reality happen. If you look at the Anunnaki history, the potential for this is massive. The potential reality for turning light into two pineal glands, two pine cones that can move a mountain or whatever it may be that you want to do. The reality is huge. But in this case, we want to just literally turn the essence of light into gold. And to amplify, what we're doing is mapping a reality system. We're putting a mapping system into it to show the options and to narrow down the options from the potential of just returning as the existing life that it came from to a much more precious reality, or to the coinage, if you like. If we're going to coin life, its value, we're going to turn, first of all, the first thing we're going to do is turn it into its value. I believe this to be the simplest way of invoking change. We've got the Philosopher's Stone deconstruction, we've got the process of return, a fine mapping system that leads to a target, a parameter set on the operating system that leads to the reality of the coinage of the value, if you like, of this existing plant, of this existing life. So, how do we do that? If you're going to create a mapping system that leads to one goal, first thing you have to do is deconstruct gold down to light, create a mapping system, create all the options, create all the realities. Well, it's quite simple with gold, because you've got a semiconductor or a superconductor, which broken down turns into philosopher's stone, turns into the gold dust, right? So for every subatomic particle of that gold dust, you need a mapping bridge to deconstruct the construction of that physical element of gold. Okay, so what you're actually doing is when you deconstruct gold using the principle of the philosopher's stone, what you're in fact doing is creating a downward mapping system to show that the levels, they'll all top out, they'll all bottom out at the same level, but it'll lead to a very, very complicated, diverse path. So you're creating so many more subatomic particles when you deconstruct it. So the subatomic particles that go to make up the principal clusters of life within a gold atomic structure are hugely complex, but less complex than a life form. And do you see why I'm saying it's harder to create a life form? If you've got a pinnacle of the gold atom, you know, a life form has different parts to it, has different, parts. Its reality to reconstruct a life form. In principle, because it was there already, it should be easier. But it's only there easier if you understand the decay process, and then to further that, to deconstruct the decayed matter into light. So when you deconstruct decayed matter, that's not giving us the prime objective. What you've in fact got is a funnel web. And the atomical structure of the gold particle should, in theory, be as complex as the deconstructed subatomical structure of the light particles. So that gives you some idea of how it works. So you're going through the funnel web, you're going through the black zone, the if you like, the anti-zone that you are creating against, and you're funneling it through that. And when it's come through the eye of that particular needle, it will generate into what you've set as a parameter to make that subatomic reality into a physical reality. So I hope that sheds some light on that. So the next level, what we're going to move up to, is healing something that's a physical damage to the human body. Physical scar tissue, anything like that. It's not dead, but it's hibernating. It's the same way as saying carbon is encapsulating. It's not dead. It's not as decayed. It still contains life in it. It's like a hibernated life form but when it's physical broken tissue that's been there for a long time, you have to take it back to the initial scar phase, the actual act of death that killed that tissue in the skin. And it's about deconstructing the reality to deconstruct to the reality of the attack, making the attack the eye of the needle, if you like, making the attack point the eye of the needle, and then deconstructing through that into what it was before, which is your raw existence, right? So what you've got, you're actually pulling it down to the level where your raw existence is life. Okay, you deconstruct through the eye of the needle, which is less complicated. It's just an attack, and then you go through that into the reality of what life is, what the life of the cheek. You take some cheek material, you look at that, you analyze it, you go into the subatomic reality of what life is in that cheek. You look at the whole nature of it. We're talking about reconstruction of a whole leg here that we've got to get to. We're talking about the inversion of something to do, anything, like, autism, that's like a physical reality. That manifests itself physically. To turn that around, we have to see, you have to go into the genus, the family history, and all that sort of thing. These things are all possible. But dealing with the cheek, what you're doing is getting to the subatomic reality of what life is in that cheek before the strike is made. The strike is made, you look at the effect that has on it, but you use that as the funnel zone to bring it back. Now, we're not bringing it something different, but first thing we're doing is reconstructing life from the missing matter. You're bringing back the missing matter in a way that causes the deformation, that causes the scar, that is permanently there. So what you're actually doing is bringing subatomic reality into, from below where it's deconstructed, you're bringing that subatomic reality. Well, that's the past, it's gone. We don't need that reality to be there when it happened, because if you think about it, that attack was always going to happen once you set this process in operation. So when you bring it through, the subatomic reality comes through the eye of the needle, and the subatomic reality of life gets into the scar tissue and starts working away on it. You have to close it in, you have to shut it in, you have to stop it mutating, which it won't do, it shouldn't do, when it reforms the model that was designed from the top. So what you'll actually do is you'll look at how the cheek should be. You use a computer, you do a scan, you'll say, right, that's how the cheek should be. We've got photographic evidence of what it's like before. We've got all the molecular infrastructure, everything we need, the complexities of what that would be. And then, so you've got your mapping system, both ends, you understand how it works. And the subatomic reality should somehow regenerate that cheek into a reality. And the same thing can be used at every level of complexity to variants that are infinite. Any problem someone may have, reconstructing a dead plant, reconstructing, wherever it may be, or literally turning something that's, has no life in it, something like a piece of stone, formerly had life in it, but it's everything does. Everything's made of life. The planet has life, everything. So deconstructing and then putting the subatomic reality into the molecular reality and binding the system through it. Now that's understood. Now, if I want to heal someone with, say, a problem like multiple sclerosis, this is to do with the mind. So you get to work on reconstructing the mind. You find the pivotal point when the multiple sclerosis first took shape and action. And then you go through the process of deconstructing the reality of what multiple sclerosis was into what it caused, what it was before, and the molecular subatomical reality into the molecular reality of what it's causing to happen in the body and the bones, and then you go into the tissue, the muscle tissue, and all the things that it affects, and you look into the reality. So it's a complex thing, but it should be possible. And I'm going to give you the go. Okay.